Thank you, Paul. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right.
Very good.
So I will say before I begin, I will say a few words just about why I'm running and who I am. But that was the most fun treasure report that I've witnessed on a central committee meeting since they were in person, because the in-person ones are just fun in retrospect. So thank you, Paul. Okay, so I saw that you knew how to raise your hand. And I'm going to have you do a little bit of audience participation here for a little moment, if you'll bear with me. And Kelly McWilliams says that the Polk County ones are boring by comparison. Okay, so you know how to raise your hand. I saw it before. Hello, Alan Journay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you know the answer to this, raise your hand. So raise your hand if you know where to go if you discovered that your grandmother or your mother was being harmed in a nursing home. You raise your hand. You can just raise your regular hand. Okay, so there's some. You can put your hands down now. Yes. All right, that would be the long-term care advocate or ombudsman at the Oregon Department of Human Services. So now raise your hand again if you know where to go. If my employer was only providing unsafe ladders when I'm painting a house. You raise your hand if you know. Yeah, some of you know. Okay, that's the OSHA, so Oregon Occupational Safety and Health Administration. All right, so you can put your hands down. So raise your hand if you know where to go. If you found that your neighbor was harassing you because you're Jewish, who would you reach out to? All right, so not as many. That would be the Oregon Department of Justice Bias Crimes Hotline. All right, raise your hand if you know where you would turn if your employer was withholding your wages. I see some, oh yeah, see some hands there. All right, that's the Bureau of Labor and Industries. All right, you can put your hands down, that's great. What about if, like at the Amazon warehouse in Bessemer, Alabama, you found that your union formation vote was being manipulated by your employer, or they were employing union busing activities? Raise your hand if you knew where you go in Oregon. Right, some of you are just on this one. All right, you can put them down. It's the Employment Relations Board. Okay, my last question then for you is, raise your hand if you have any idea why Oregon's labor commissioner is elected rather than appointed by the governor. And you could actually, if you want to, you could put some of your ideas in the chat. But clearly some people have ideas. Awesome. Okay, you can put your hands down now. All right, thank you very much for participating. It was great. Jean still has her hand up, but I know that there was funny things. So I hope that you saw something there, which at least for me is that there's an assortment of agencies in the state, and they're all tasked with educating and mediating and enforcing some parts of Oregon's laws on safety, civil rights, and worker rights. And my view is that no one should have to know where to go. It shouldn't be the responsibility of individual people to know, oh, that's the place that I go for this thing or for that thing. It should be the responsibility of the state, whether that agency or the elected head, to communicate clearly where somebody needs to go and take care of them if they come to them with a complaint. So what's BOLI's responsibility in that galaxy of agencies? In short, BOLI educates, investigates, and enforces on civil rights in the workplace, in public accommodation, and in housing. And then as an asterisk, BOLI also registers and supervises apprenticeships in the state of Oregon. So with all of that, I'm running for labor commissioner to educate people about their rights, empower you so that you know where to go if your rights are violated, and build trust so that you know you'll have a just, fair, and swift outcome when you reach out. And I'm running for labor commissioner to ensure that we have an independent, fully funded, responsive state agency. And I'm running for labor commissioner to work with unions, professional accrediting boards, community organizations, and businesses to expand apprenticeships of the types and slots, and to support apprentices from all walks of life with the support they need to complete an apprenticeship. So who am I that I can do this? First, as you all know, because it's in my title, my name on the Zoom, I'm a Yamhill County Commissioner. And that means that I know how to run a responsive government agency and how to work with labor and management and business and the public. And I know how to get elected. I will say, for those of you in Jackson County, I know how to get elected in a purple community, a community full of people with different values and ideas, and in a community that labor commissioner really needs to be there for. And I'm also a farmer, and I've been a farm worker, which means I know what businesses need in order to uphold their responsibilities to workers. And I know what workers need to feel safe and human on the job. And in a previous iteration of my life, before I was a graduate student, and while I was an undergraduate, I also worked as a plumber's assistant to pay my way through college. So I also know the value of apprenticeships and union membership. And I would say that finally, it's because it's personal. I'm a father of two, a 9 and a 12, and this is going higher and higher every day. And I want my own children to have a bright future in Oregon, where their civil rights are upheld regardless of what they do or who they are, and that they have the opportunity to work and live in a society where they can afford to pay their bills, very basically. So I would love to take questions from you if you have them, or I can ask you questions. But you can find out more about me on my website and at social media. And I'm happy to put my contact information, or Kelly will, in the chat so that we can communicate a little bit more. But thank you all for allowing me to be with you today. And I will say, Kelly McWilliams is both campaign manager and also as part of Polk County Democrats, whereas I'm in Yamhill County. So we're already doing that multi-county outreach. But thank you very much. Like in Jackson County, I have colleagues who are extreme, to be honest. And what I've realized is that you got to work really, 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 really hard with the people who aren't extreme, because there are people in elected office who are different than you. I mean, Paul, the treasurer's report demonstrated, like, you got to work with everybody, goodwill and being principled, right? But then there are people that you just have to say, like, you don't belong anywhere near elected office, and we need to push you out. And so I'm actually in that right now, where I'm working really hard with a colleague who is very conservative and working to support the recall of a colleague who is just extreme. And so I don't know if that has lessons for us in the labor commissioner role, except to say that sometimes you just have to say, like, enough is enough, and this is the wrong thing to do right now. And I lost, there's David again. But in the labor commissioner role, and I will say at BOLI in general, there are workers. And so there's a binary, right? There's workers and there's businesses and employers. And I find myself in my commissioner role working to kind of eliminate or bridge the gap between binaries like that of business and labor, or worker and employer. And that means in the role of labor commissioner, of really listening to everybody and making sure that all investigations are fair and impartial, and that people actually get justice in the end, while still holding businesses liable for the rules that we've set for them. So it's hot work. It takes somebody who's willing to stand by staff. And I say that, like, with a lot of experience of, sometimes staff have to give you hard answers, right? Where they're like, this is the law. And then you have to stay, for me at least, what I feel very called to is standing by them when they're making those hard decisions and taking any kind of political heat so that they can continue to do their good work. The current labor commissioner is Val Hoyle, who is running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District because Peter DeFazio is stepping down. So she is leaving her post, and I've lost. Oh, there's Alan again. I want to look right at you there. So I would say that the Commissioner Hoyle has spent a lot of very good time and very good energy in expanding apprenticeships. So she set as a target that 1/3 of apprenticeship slots would be filled by women and people of color in Oregon. And it really, it has the in the long term, that has the potential to really reshape the face of working Oregon. And also to really uplift communities that have either a lower income or have been marginalized in history. And so that's been the primary focus of her work. I will continue to keep that same target. And she has an amazing apprenticeship division manager. So the way it's set up right now is that there's an apprenticeship division, there's a wage and hour division, and then there's a civil rights division. And I really want to focus on community outreach so that employers know exactly what they're expected to do and that people in the community know what their rights are. Because I often say that what's good is a right if you don't know you have it. But a more structural issue is that over the past 25 years, we've reduced by half the number of employees at BOLI, and at the same time, doubled the number of things that BOLI is expected to cover and enforce. And to me, that we see, I will say just that we have record budgets at the state of Oregon. And I really think it's time to redouble our efforts to actually enforce the laws by having enough staff at the Bureau of Labor and Industries. And my connections in the legislature and with state agencies has me ready to really rebuild that staff there. And I've had many conversations about this. She wants to support a commissioner who's going to win. And so she's just keeping her eye on that prize, right? The apprenticeship division at BOLI is actually charged with developing and encouraging and supporting a high skill, high wage workforce in Oregon. And I will say that we should all have a goal of having a high wage teaching workforce, but there's no doubt that they're high skill, as are nurses. But so the Bureau of Labor and Industries actually has a role in working with accrediting boards, unions, the state of Oregon, other agencies, in order to develop potential pathways to like an apprenticeship pathway for some of these this work that traditionally has required either a bachelor's degree and a master's degree or just a bachelor's degree. And as you can imagine, part of it is that if you don't have school debt, there will be more people who will get into it, but you're obviously then into workforce and into workforce settings much earlier, easing some of that workforce crunch that is with us now and will be even tighter in the future. I totally agree, Jeannie. And I will note that in Yamhill County, in our county government, the county has 600 full-time employees. And we've done a lot of work within agencies of actually looking at job descriptions, because sometimes somebody who's like set in a job description is gradually over time working their way out of it. And in a fiscally conservative county where there's often a performance of not paying well as that somehow a virtue. County departments have actually been successful in reclassifying people to say like, hey, look at this, you're doing a lot more work than when we hired you, or you've done this accreditation so you can supervise 2 more people. Well, we're gonna change your job classification, and that's been a really effective way for people to be shown that they're respected and to retain them, which I will say in a rural area, and you're rural in some ways, we're rural in some ways in Yamhill County, that it's a really good way to retain workers who could go to a bigger city really easily from Yamhill County. In 2021, we had a record heat wave in Oregon that a lot of people, especially in the Portland area, were unable to get out of heat within their homes, and a number of people died. Like it was a disaster. And specifically around housing, folks in the Portland area have been working on requiring that rentals have a means of cooling. And so the having means of cooling within a rental, and whether that's available or not, directly comes under the responsibility of the BOLI commissioner. Renters have a lot of rights in Oregon, but if they're not enforced and if people don't know about them, then again, it's almost like they don't matter. The flip side of that too is that it's not just people who are renting. If you're searching for a home, if you're going to go and buy a home, there are things that just sellers cannot do. For example, a seller cannot discriminate against you for the number of children you have. And I will say that I work with all kinds of people, including people who are really, I would say, objectively awful. And one of them told me, he was like, well, I don't have any rights because I'm a white guy. And obviously that has its own many problematic things. But I was like, I know how old you are, and I know that you have children. Yes, objectively awful is putting it mildly. But I said, people have rights in the state of Oregon. You can't be discriminated against in housing for how many children you have, or for your age. And so I think it's really important for people to know that they don't have to, they don't have to just be victims. They can fight, but that the state and BOLI will be there with them. So I work with lots of people, as I've already put out there. I work, because I'm in a county where all of my legislators are Republicans, I work with Republican legislators all the time and Democratic legislators. This will be decided in May. And that's why it's so important to have strong turnout in May. And I do think that with in our county, Polk County, Marion County, a little bit of Washington, a little bit of Clackamas, and Yamhill County have a new congressional district. So in our area, there will be a lot of excitement around getting to choose our Democratic nominee, which incidentally, Bill, in case you were wondering, is projected to be by far the most expensive primary in Democratic congressional history. Yes. Yes, which I hope means that there will be strong turnout. I do worry that the costs of elections actually drives down turnout in some, because people get sick of it. They hear ads and they see ads, and yeah. But I want to respect your time, and Paul is probably pulling me off the stage right now. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for letting me join you today. Invite me again. I would love to attend your April 9th dinner, but I'm pretty sure that I'm at a dinner in Lane County at the same time. But reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.